This video may trigger and cause foaming of the mouth. Viewer discretion is advised. Your blood pressure may rise after watching this video. I promise you I didn't make it to be clickbait. It's kind of like a revelation I had. So I've been shooting photography since 2009, primarily with Canon. I tried to always get those 1.2 lenses, 1.8 lenses, whether it's the 50 1.2, 85 1.2. Eventually, I sold those off, and I primarily shoot with the 2.8, 24 to 70 2.8, and the 70 to 200 2.8. But I try to shoot at 2.8, which gives it bokeh. And bokeh, if you don't know, is the blurriness of the background of an image. And you get more bokeh if your f-stop comes down to like 1.2, 1.8, or if the distance between your subject and the camera and then the subject in the background is more, there's going to be more of a blur there. It's pleasing to the eye. Some people think that bokeh is what makes video cinematic, and it isolates a subject when you're watching video. That's why people use it for video. But for photographs, which are just one image usually, is it necessary? Is the bokeh necessary, and should you use it? And my hypothesis is bokeh is a crutch for lazy photographers. And now all the comments are going to come in and they're going to say, F you this, you don't know what you're talking about, you're a professional, ha ha ha, LOL, LOL. Look, just listen, give me a chance. This past week, I was shooting in San Diego for the GI Film Festival, which was at the Museum of Photographic Arts in Balboa Park. Amazing spot. I'm originally from San Diego, maybe I'm biased. Balboa Park is lovely, the museums are lovely. But in the middle of this, when I wasn't shooting, I was like, let's check out this museum that I'm in. Let's see what the photos look like. So I took some phone pictures of the photos that were inside. And, you know, if these photos are good enough to be in a museum, they're probably art. They probably have some value to them, right? Can we establish that? So when I was looking at these photos, I kind of noticed some of them, yes, some of them have bokeh. You can see there's a blurriness between the subject and the background, but predominantly there was no blurriness between the subject and the background. There was no bokeh. There was nothing there that signifies, oh, we're trying to target this subject. We're trying to just bring this down. Even though if they were portraits, even though if they were just one person, bokeh wasn't really evident. So I had a revelation. I was like, if these artists that are, let's assume they're better than me, of course, their stuff is in a museum. If they're photographs and there's a series of them, it's not just one photograph from an artist. If their photographs don't use bokeh, and I'm sure they had access to these lenses, these, you know, even though the photos are a little older, I'm sure they had 85 1.8s, 1.4s, or 200 2.8s, 2.0s. If they're not using it, why? And if they're not using it, why should I be using it? Why should I always try to strive at shoot at 2.8 if I'm shooting one person? Why am I doing that? And it's kind of known that the photo is not about the bokeh, but it's about the story, right? It's about what is this photo portraying? And around these photos, there was messages. So here's one of them. Photograph the world as it is. Nothing's more interesting than reality. First and foremost, I am a storyteller. So what does this mean? This means that what you're photographing should tell the story first. And if it has bokeh, then so be it. The bokeh is part of the story. But when you're looking at something, if you're looking at a beautiful, let's say, lake, if you're looking into someone's home who has their home decor from the 70s, if you're looking at that, you're not seeing bokeh. You're seeing parts that make that person, parts that make that scene up, that nature, all the different elements, the story of it, what has happened. It may cause you to think, to question it. Why is this like this? How did this happen? These questions are what creates the story in your mind if you don't have other information. And that story is what moves you when you're looking at a photo. So I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Instead of trying to obviously light a subject, get the bokeh, get someone to look good, you know, if that's the end goal, that's fine, but that shouldn't be the highest tier of photography. That's like in the middle area. The bottom is just like, I'd say street photography. Sorry to offend you. If it's just shooting a bunch of photos and seeing what you're capturing, I'm assuming that's street photography. If this triggers you, that means I have no idea what I'm talking about. But if we're shooting weddings, for example, we're trying to isolate the bride and the groom from the background. We're trying to make them look beautiful. We're trying to light them beautifully. If we're shooting commercial photography, obviously we're not really trying to tell a story except for maybe, hey, this bottle and this table is used for this drink. Or if we have a whole table set up with foods, there was a dinner that took place here. There's a dessert. There's a feast that took place there. There's somewhat of a story, but it's not revolving around bokeh. So I thought maybe bokeh is kind of a crutch that we're using. Bokeh is used when you don't know how to tell a story, when there's no story there. And there almost always is a story there. You're just not finding it. You're not seeing it. So when I have a hypothesis and I come up with these ideas that are sometimes just nuts, I think, okay, the museum, this rule that I'm coming up with, that story is important, applies to these photos at the museum, but does it apply elsewhere? So when I came home, I found my little Helmut Newton book that I had gotten. This is like one of those expensive ass books that's overpriced that shows you pictures from an artist. And he's considered an artist, I'm sure, by many. And I wanted to see, did his photos that are published in his book have a lot of bokeh? And there's a lot of nudity here, so I'm probably not going to show that because I don't want YouTube to, block me. But when you go through his photos, there's weirdness to them. There's a story to them. There's like, why is this happening? The lighting's not even always that great. The lighting's not flattering. There's like direct sunlight. There's weird shadows. There's people in the background. But there's a story always. And I think that's what's important. The story of the person that he's capturing, or the scene that he's capturing, with what's going on. And I think that is what makes it powerful. That's why he's so impactful. That's why there's all these books about him and his work. So what I learned from this is, when I'm taking photos next time, whatever it is, a wedding, a portrait session, can I make it more intriguing by telling the story of the person? Can I reveal something about them subtly to make the viewer who's looking at it maybe think a little bit, think, why is the backpack red? Why is this person wearing a backpack or a bandana or the necklace? Or just try to move the viewer a little bit more. We're just taking so many photos that it just comes out with our cell phones, our DSLRs, mirrorless, whatever we're using. It's just too many photos and we're not focusing on anything anymore. We're just trying to capture memories or capture people or take the paycheck and just deliver. And I think if we take a few seconds to slow it down, which I think why it's great to shoot medium format, although I haven't, but I heard that it's slow, that slowing it down is what's going to help you create more stories, to tell better stories, to capture more moving photos. And I was just thinking about also my most moving photos that I've gotten, which are usually emotional photos between parents and their kids. Those aren't really bokalicious. Those are just the stories, the emotion, the raw emotion that you're seeing in the photos. And it kind of proves my point. Bokeh isn't necessary. Bokeh is a crutch, and it's the story that you tell. So next time you go out, instead of thinking about the new R1 that's been released and how that's going to help you make a better photo, it's not. Think about how you can make a better story with what you have. And if you actually use less expensive glass, if you use less expensive gear, it might be harder for you to just get an amazing photo right off the bat as if you were shooting with a 100 to 300 2.8. You'll have to put more effort in the story, more effort in how you're revealing the subject to the audience. This was my rant. If you hate it, it's okay. Give it a thumbs up anyway. Thanks for watching.